Welcome everybody to the Mighty Mentality Mentor podcast. I'm your host, NLOG. So last time we talked about kind of the reason why I've gotten into this journey and my purpose for the podcast. We talked a little bit about how mindset and skill set and results are connected, and that there's almost like a feedback mechanism, if you would, between the ladder of mindset, skill set, and results. In that, if you look at the results that you have as a way to gauge or determine what skill sets you need to earn next, then you're using the results to give you that feedback of what course of action you need to follow for skill sets. And then, of course, depending upon the kind of skill sets that you've got, right, your current, I want to use the term array, but your current set of skills, right, that's pretty important for you to be able to determine exactly what you need to do next for your mindset. Sorry guys, I'm laughing right now because my cat Max is just hilarious. He won't leave the keyboard alone. It might end up in the final recording there, but he's scratching at the monitor because the recording sequencer is kind of just moving. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, getting back to kind of, your current skill set, right? The set of skills that you have available to you that you've either earned across time, across, high levels of discipline, planning, so on and so forth. And then, of course, some skill sets that we were born with, right? We also talked very briefly about your journey versus your result, and that, a lot of times when we're getting into something, the result is sort of what we're looking for originally, and that eventually what happens is the journey is the reason why we stay doing whatever it is item that we're talking about doing. And that's important because we're going to connect that with arrival fallacy pretty soon. And then obviously we briefly touched on the iceberg idea as well, which is a very fascinating idea. I think a lot of people have been touched by the metaphor of the iceberg, in that we've all probably seen the same image of an iceberg, a full iceberg, of course, where you can only see the top, and the top layer kind of has some words as to why one gets into something, and then of course you can see the bottom half, or bottom section of the iceberg. It's not just one half. It's actually a much larger component of the iceberg, and that shows kind of the things that you don't see, the late nights and sacrifices and so on and so forth, right? And so that was kind of what we briefly talked about last time. Now I do want to spend a little bit more time actually diving a bit deeper into each item. So starting with intent. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English language, lots of words, but they have mentioned that intent is defined as something that is intended, an aim, or purpose, right? And that's big, because the Britannica definition, it's very similar actually to that, in that The Britannica definition is the thing that you plan to do or achieve, an aim or purpose. And I really want to spend some time here talking about aim or purpose, because aim or purpose is what we're going to be kind of honing in on. You can see that aim and purpose ended up being in both the definitions, right? So what you aim on and what your purpose is, that's huge. Actually, fun fact, Polaris, or the North Star, it's our current North Star. It was originally used to find north, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because, our purpose is always tied with the phrase North Star. In Toyota Production Systems lean methodology, they talk about the North Star kind of being, the guiding principle, the thing that you, when in doubt, think about, so that you can get back to being aligned with the main vision of an organization, right? So aim and purpose are very important. Exactly what we take aim at and choose to exercise our purpose on needs to involve thought, right? Because the lens of how we view events is completely different depending on the intent that we have. For example, I mentioned earlier Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that's one example right there where, you can have two individuals sitting in the exact same class, watching the exact same instruction, and person A is in there because of self-defense, and person B is in there because they want to be a good competitor, right? And so if, let's say, for example, the instructor or coach is going over a particular movement or pattern that involves a situation where, for a moment, one of the individuals is able to disengage, then naturally person A is going to look at that one moment or position within the entire movement and realize to themselves, oh, hey, you know what, that's a perfect spot where I can go in there and I can disengage, right? Whereas person B, if person B got into jiu-jitsu because of competitive aspirations, then that person might view that particular moment as an opening to advance position, as an opening to retain position, or as an opening to potentially receive a submission victory, right? So what you view, the lens with which you view life, can change the result or the conclusion that you end up having for that same moment. Two people looking at the exact same thing, coming away with two completely different conclusions, right? And well, I think that's a big thing. We got to not only touch on that, but we need to be able to really kind of delve into that, because that's going to be the focus when we're talking about intent. If you're liking what you're hearing, give me a follow on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Mighty Mentality Mentor. On Facebook, give me a follow at mighty.mentality.mentor. And on X at Mighty Mentality. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about arrival fallacy, and I kind of want to spend a little bit of time on arrival fallacy, and that, I think it's very, very central in people's almost, I wouldn't say inability, but our challenges in looking at something and going, that's exactly what I want, right? So arrival fallacy is defined as the idea that once you reach a goal, you will experience enduring happiness. This idea came from a Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, Harvard PhD and a Columbia University professor on happiness. And that's important, right? We talked about a piece of that earlier, in that, we were going over the journey versus the result, and that, the result is why normally we got into something, and then the journey is what changes us. Well, same thing. It's like, having that idea that once you reach that goal, once you reach that result, you will experience enduring happiness. And frankly, we're not really that good at doing that. We don't even know that a result will provide us what we want or even happiness, and that's a difficult thing to accept, right? You take a look at examples of some celebrities, these guys, they talk about depression. They have heavy drug use to try to really just try to run away from whatever is going on in their life. You take a look at some of these business owners that, and when they get asked, oh, why did you get into business ownership? A lot of times they'll say things like, well, I didn't want to take orders from anybody. And that's kind of a short-sighted reason, right? Your need to not take orders from anybody is going to be crushed underneath the truth of we all take orders from people, because the boss at the end of the day is the individual that is providing you what you want out of the equation. So if you are providing a service for an individual, the person that's giving you cash is the person that you are taking orders from. You want the cash, you have the skill set, hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? Now, that's not to say that, people are going to be happy about it and kind of, really be, I guess the word I'm looking for would be abrasive about things, right? Because really it's just a matter of the way that you view things. But the fact still remains, we don't know what a particular result will get us as far as happiness and fulfillment is concerned. And that kind of brings us into an idea of what's called impact bias. Impact bias is the tendency for people to overestimate the intensity and duration of their emotional reactions to future events, right? And that's crazy as well. How can we know that a result that will really satisfy us, how can we know that it will really satisfy us, rather, if we can't even properly estimate how fulfilled we will be when we do achieve our result? That's pretty scary, guys. People might be putting in 10 years into something, get to that final destination, if you would, or final result, and only getting a 3 out of 10 happiness, out of a 10 out of 10 scale, right? Thinking obviously that they were going to get a 10 out of 10 happiness level, out of that 10 out of 10 scale. They only get 3 out of 10. And that's scary, because, you start to kind of think, well, I spent all of that time. That might be a little closer to the celebrities, in that our celebrities can't really gain that lasting happiness, and they turn to depression and heavy drug use. I shouldn't say turn to depression, because I don't think that that's something that's really something that a person chooses to do, but they turn to heavy drug use and end up having depression, right? So in summary, I want to kind of touch on purpose and aim. Is something happening, and think of cause and effect. Actually, we didn't even really get a chance to really delve into cause and effect, but I'm thinking we'll spend a little bit of time on that on the next episode, as we really start digging into arrival fallacy, right? And what we'll do is Max freaking out again, but anyway, next episode we'll talk a little bit about cause and effect, and how our purpose and aim is something kind of happening, right? Think of it like cause and effect. I look at cause and effect like a chemical reaction, right? And a chemical reaction, we'll get into all of that later on, but a chemical reaction has reactants and products, and we'll really zoom in on that next episode. But the focus should be on the journey and how that journey changes you. That's kind of the point of all of this, and why we brought up impact bias, arrival fallacy, right? And kind of the lens of how we view events, right? So thanks a lot for tuning in. Again, please give us a follow on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Mighty Mentality Mentor, on Facebook at mighty.mentality.mentor, and on X at Mighty Mentality. Thanks for watching.